scenes.
What about Scary Movie 2?
It's Halloween time.
It's Halloween Scary Movie 3. It's silly. Yeah, it's silly. So,
I can't keep up.
It spoofs things like The Ring and other horror films, so if you like that sort of thing, go for it.
Yeah, I kind of do. I like those wacky movies that just make fun of other movies.
Exactly.
I'm sick that way.
Any scary ones out there? Again, it's that Halloween time. Is there one that if you want that good scream or fright?
Well, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre made almost, $30 million last weekend, so it may do pretty well this weekend as well if people want to get their scare in right before Halloween and trick-or-treating.
Scare on.
Yeah.
Blood and gore. I thought you don't like blood and gore, Mike.
I was just asking.
Okay. Well, you say
Not for everyone else.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Brooke. Okay, well, let's take a break right now.
Yes, we shall. And one other thing we want to talk about, dessert. We were just knocking down, at least I was knocking down some of Kara's goodbye cake. Anyway,
Did you get some of Kara's goodbye? Nobody gave me any cake.
Anyway, reading this one, the ingredients of one dessert in Seattle just is not enough. There could be lawsuits. It's so good.
That's right. Coming up, find out why you have to read the fine print before you dig in. 3 more U.S. soldiers have been killed in Iraq. Central Command says a soldier with the 101st Airborne Division died in a small arms fire attack in the northern city of Mosul. The other 2 were from the 4th Infantry Division. They were hit by mortar fire north of Baghdad near Samarra. The attack also wounded 4 soldiers, and the U.S. military says a quick reaction force was set out after the attackers almost immediately. Rescuers in Russia are desperately trying to reach 46 miners trapped in a water-filled shaft a half a mile underground. An emergency ministry official says the mine began filling with water yesterday, shorting out the electrical system and shutting down the elevator. Engineers are digging a tunnel to try to reach the miners, and scuba divers are also being dispatched. The water initially filled the coal shaft at about 3 feet per minute, but that rate has slowed to about 2.5 feet per hour. At least 2,000 people have been forced out of their homes because of a Southern California wildfire. More than 1,400 firefighters are battling a wildfire near Rancho, Kookoo-Manga. Arson is suspected as a possible cause of the fire, which began on Tuesday. The blaze is also threatening power lines that supply 1/4 of the electricity to the Los Angeles County area. Forecasters warn things could get worse before they get better. The winds are likely to kick up over the weekend and aren't expected to die down until the middle of the week. Products named to inspire shock and awe, plus a new type of OJ that packs some extra punch. Those are some of the business highlights today. Mike Galanis is here with the details. Mike.
All right, let's start with the numbers, though. Stock market, we're talking here. Stock prices managed to finish well above the lows for the session today, but remained on the downside overall at the closing bell. The Dow Jones Industrials finished down 30 points, closing at 95.82. The NASDAQ Composite lost 19 points and closed at 1865. The S&P 500 was down 4 points. Now, some of the things Rudy was talking about. First, Coca-Cola on Monday launching what it says is a cholesterol-reducing orange juice. Minute Maid Premium Heartwise will contain plant sterols, which have been shown to cut cholesterol levels by about 10%. More than 41 million Americans have high cholesterol, and another 60 million have moderately elevated levels of the fatty substance. Now, the soft drink maker is fighting rival Pepsi for an edge in the health drinks market. And another story Rudy had mentioned, apparently the term shock and awe, which was popularized in the Iraqi war, didn't bomb with the American public. Now, dozens of companies want to use it in their product names. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office says it has received 29 shock and awe applications for products including golf clubs, dietary supplements, salsa, Bloody Mary mix, condoms, and infant action crib toys. The Patent Office says nothing has been this popular since the terms Millennium and Y2K made the headlines. For that, Rudy, back to you.
Well, I believe that. This is the end of an era for well-heeled travelers. British Airways marking the last flight of the Concorde. The supersonic jet touched down at London's Heathrow Airport today, completing its final 3.5-hour journey from New York. The plane carried 100 passengers, including celebrities and business executives.
I think the highs are the general atmosphere of celebration, which is what we set out. We wanted the last few months and weeks and days of Concorde's operation to be a celebration. The low, yes, certainly there's some sadness that this wonderful aircraft is retiring, but we're all absolutely sure it's the right decision, and we've been making lots of effort to make sure that today was successful.
British Airways says in spite of the $11,000 a seat price tag, the Concorde was only marginally profitable. Air France, the only other airlines to use Concordes, had its last supersonic flight back in May. Well, that doesn't mean that the airlines still don't offer top-drawer travel arrangements. So which airlines are getting ready to provide the lap of luxury now? Our Headline News travel analyst, Chris McGinnis, joining us now with more details. But before we get into that, Chris, was it really time to retire the Concorde?
Unfortunately, I mean, yes, it really was. The plane was 30 years old. They had a hard time getting spare parts for it. You know, in this economy, they were having difficulty getting enough passengers willing to pay that $11,000 or $12,000 round-trip fare. So it was time to go.
Able is more the question.
Yeah, but I was actually lucky enough to fly the Concorde about a month ago, and you know, it's really not a big plane. People automatically think Concorde has got to be big, but look at this picture here. I'm 6 feet tall, and you can barely stand up all the way in the aisle, and the knee room was about like it is on a exit row seat in coach on a U.S. carrier. So it's not a really big plane, not a whole lot of space.
Yeah, I flew it once when I was a little girl. Don't remember a thing, unfortunately. So what are the airlines offering to upscale travelers to keep them coming back? Well, people who would pay the $11,000.
Yeah, well, what they're offering is something that the Concorde couldn't offer, which is a lot of space to get up or lay out, stretch out, and go to sleep. Now, what we're looking at here is Singapore Airlines. They had a rig here in a parking lot outside CNN Center, and they invited me on it. Inside, which we'll see in a minute, is just like the first class section of one of their planes. Now, this is called a Sky Suite. This is their first class section. That's me in my Givenchy pajamas, getting in a bed.
Sleeping on the job?
Yeah, you know, and then you wake up to a champagne breakfast served to you by one of the famous Singapore girls. Glass of champagne if you want it. Now look at this. Look at this seat here. Now the seat costs $102,000 each. It's got a 14-inch video screen with about 150 different programs you can watch, movies, games, you name it. And it's also got a plug here that you see that you can plug your laptop in. You don't have to have a special converter or anything like that.
Are they still down there, Chris? I might need a nap after the show.
No, this is actually a little while ago. The next time you go across the Atlantic, across the Pacific, it can't be beat.
Well, how much does this first class ticket on Singapore Airlines cost?
Well, you know, there are people out there where cost is no object, and, you know, their company's willing to pay, or they're a star and they've got plenty of money, or just a wealthy individual, about $9,000 to $11,000 round trip. Now, a lot of these sell out. Now, what's really interesting...
Sell out?
Oh, yeah. They definitely usually sell out quite frequently. Now, what's interesting about Singapore, and one of the reasons they put this luxurious bed in their planes, is because they're going to have the longest commercial flight in the world starting in February between Los Angeles and Singapore. 18.5 hours nonstop.
Wow, that's longer than going from here to Africa.
Yeah, the longest one is actually, right now, it's Atlanta to Johannesburg.
Johannesburg, which I've made, by the way.
That's a long flight, but
dreadful flight.
For something like that, you need a bed to sleep in, you know?
Yeah, only business class. And speaking of business class, you've been talking about first class.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about the business class.
The good thing about business class is that we're starting to see beds in business class, too. Now, British Airways came out with a business class bed in about 2000. What we're looking at here is Northwest Airlines. They're the only U.S. carrier that really has come out with a flat bed for sleeping. A lot of other airlines have this, but the trend is toward more beds. So hopefully we'll all get a good night's sleep the next time we have to take a business trip across one of these oceans.
All right, Chris McGinnis, you have a great column also on the internet. Tell us about that quickly.
Go to cnn.com/HLN for my travel advisor column. It loads every Tuesday. Read it and let me know what you think.
Yeah, and always good information there. Thank you, Chris McGinnis.
All right.
Democrats say an investigation into Iraqi pre-war intelligence is ignoring questions about whether the Bush administration misused the information. Democrats in the traditionally nonpartisan Senate Intelligence Committee say there's too much blame being put on intelligence agencies and not enough on the White House. Russian rescue officials are working around the clock to save 46 miners. They're trapped when their shaft they were working in was flooded by water from an underground lake. After more than 24 hours, though, no contact has been made with the miners. And residents in Rancho, Kookoo-Manga, California say it's been raining ash. A wildfire there has already claimed 4 outlying homes and is threatening to take more. Thousands of acres of national forest have also been scorched. Arson is the suspected cause. 3 members of the paparazzi who chased Princess Diana the night she died say they were only doing their jobs. The 3 went on trial today in Paris for invasion of privacy. Mohammed Al-Fayed filed the criminal complaint against the photographers for taking pictures of his son at the crash scene. Dodi Al-Fayed also died in that accident. Now, if the paparazzi are convicted, they could get a year in jail and $53,000 in fines. They were cleared last year of manslaughter in the 1997 crash that killed Diana Fayed and the driver. Princes William and Harry have some harsh words for former royal butler Paul Burrell. In a statement released today, they chastised Burrell for what they call a cold and overt betrayal of their mother. Burrell has written a book about his years as Princess Diana's butler, and excerpts have been carried all week in the Daily Mirror newspaper. The princes say their mother would be mortified at Burrell's actions if she were alive today. A high school freshman honor student in suburban Atlanta is being allowed to return to class on Monday, at least temporarily. Rachel Boyum was expelled by the Fulton County School Board after a teacher confiscated her journal that she was passing to another student. Now, inside of it was a fictional story Boyum had written about a student who kills a teacher and then is shot to death. Boyum's parents are outraged by the expulsion. All right, welcome back, everyone. The legal battle over whether a severely brain-damaged Florida woman should live or die continues. Her parents and husband can't agree on what kind of future she will or should have. Now, courts have ruled that Terri Schiavo is in a persistent vegetative state, but what her parents think is that she can be rehabilitated. Medical analyst Marcia Cohen joining me now to help explain what a vegetative state is. So help us understand, doctor, what the difference between a coma is and a vegetative state.
A coma is a very acute thing that happens after someone has some sort of brain damage, whether it's in an accident or if they, for some reason, have had something happen to their body so they're not getting oxygen to the brain. And in those particular circumstances, when they don't get oxygen to the brain, like after a heart attack, the brain cells are very sensitive to that loss, and with several minutes, those cells start to die. And that's exactly what we, in the news, when we're talking about this woman, is what happened to her. Now, she was in a coma. As the coma keeps going on, then it's called a persistent vegetative state.
Do we know, let me stop you here, do we know when it goes from coma to persistent vegetative state? Is there something that shuts down in the brain? Do they do brain scans?
No, they do a lot of studies to figure out whether the brain is working, but it's a time thing. I mean, let's look at some of the things that they see in a persistent vegetative state. They look like they're asleep. They could open their eyes, so it makes people think that they're really aware. They may move their body. These are sort of just general movements, not specific, but the lower part of the brain that is working keeps their heart rate and their blood pressure and their breathing. In other words, you don't think to breathe. You just automatically breathe. It's those kinds of, things that they do. And they can laugh and actually make faces, and people think, oh, they're responding, but these are just an automatic response. They do not wake up. They do not talk. They do not respond to any kind of commands, because the front part of their brain, which is the thinking part, is not working.
Can somebody be in a coma for a period of time, but the front part of the brain is working, oxygen has reached the brain?
Yes, those are usually different type of accidents, like, for instance, car accidents, where they're still getting, blood to the brain. I think the important thing is, what does this mean if you're in this vegetative state? And what this means is, it is highly unlikely, we never say never, but highly unlikely that she will ever recover what we call cognitive or thinking processes, and that a lot of these behavior patterns that she has, as the brain specialist will tell you, they look like they're responding, but they are not done in response to anything, but they tend to make family members think that they are. This is sometimes
Is it more of a reactive thing, like perhaps when a newborn baby looks like it's smiling?
It's probably not even at that level. What we're talking about is just sort of an automatic response, and unfortunately it can be very confusing for the family. I think it's a very hard road for these people to toe, and I think it's just one of these things that unfortunately most people do not get better.
All right, well, thank you for helping us understand that. It's very complicated, and we're all emotionally attached now to Terri Schiavo, so we appreciate the help. Dr. Marcia Cohen with her wonderful insight.
Thanks, Rudy. You take care now.